All right, Tristyn Lee, I wanted to do a specific video for younger people that are trying to build muscle, right? Like I do a lot of content on my channel geared towards people in their 30s, 40s, even 50s and up. And you are someone that if I had to say like, who's the best person in their 20s to talk to about like true level-headed nutrition and training, I would point people to you.
I don't know anything.
You've got your stuff together and your delivery is great. So you're the person to ask, and we can have a good little conversation about this. Like, what would your cardinal rules be for someone maybe in their 20s that's not necessarily a newbie? Maybe they're like in that middle ground, right?
Sure.
Where they've already gotten through newbie gains. They're not like a total beginner, but there's someone's like, okay, I'm trying to get to that intermediate step of building muscle and getting a little jacked.
It's hard to cover it in. Everything's intertwined is what I'll say. So one thing affects the other when it comes to building muscle. So when it comes to hypertrophy training or bodybuilding or building muscle as a whole, there's kind of three pillars that you can work on. And if you optimize those three pillars, you're going to be optimizing your potential for building muscle. The first one is sleep. So most people look at sleep secondarily to the training portion. But what I will say is that if you're not getting a good quality 7 to 8 hours, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, if you can do more, especially when you're younger, per night, you're not going to be optimally growing. And so most people, they say, I'm training hard, I'm eating the right foods, why aren't I growing? And most of the time you say, are you sleeping? And they'll say, well, I'm sleeping 5 hours, or I get 8 hours some nights, or my sleep schedule is not consistent. It's like these are all things that are going to affect whether or not you're going to be gaining muscle, because the muscle is not built in the gym. The stimulus is provided in the gym, and then the muscle's built in the recovery process. So some tips, because people say, well, that's great to know I have terrible sleep. How can I improve that? For me, the biggest thing was keeping a consistent sleep schedule. So every single night, I'm in bed at the same time, I'm in the same environment, and I wake up at the same time. I try to keep a dark, cool, quiet environment. Those are the three things that I try to maintain. And I try to limit the amount of blue light or extremely things that are making you alert, I would say.
Stimulating.
Yeah, stimulating. That's a better word. There you go. I told you, I don't know my stuff. Things that are very stimulating, an hour to 2 hours before bed, I try to limit them. And I try to get myself into a kind of calm, relaxed state so that I'm able to just ease into my sleep and then sleep those 8 hours. So if you're able to keep your consistent sleep environment, consistent sleep times, and get good 7 to 9 hours per night where your sleep quality is good, that's going to be one of the most beneficial things when it comes to building muscle. Two, from a training perspective, most people look at training as I'm just going to go and run my head into the wall as hard as I can, especially when you're in your 20s because you're resilient, as hard as I can every single day and hope for the best possible result.
I put a link down below for 30% off your entire first order with Thrive Market. Thrive Market focuses on the ingredient quality. That's why getting 30% off your first order with them is awesome. If you go to the grocery store, the reality is you have to spend a lot of time and you need a practical PhD to really read the ingredients, to really understand and cross-referencing. Thrive Market does that already. They do not have garbage ingredients coming into the food that they have on their digital shelves, so to speak. So the reason that I trust Thrive Market is because I know that even if I'm getting something that's like a sweet treat or something that I want to enjoy that's even a snack, at least I don't have to worry about having low quality ingredients. And you can sort by different diet type. I spent a lot of time in Europe recently and I was just almost in love with the food quality there. And the thing that I like about Thrive is they do a good job of emulating the kind of food quality that's coming into the foods that they have. So that link down below gets you 30% off. It gets delivered right to your doorstep and you get a free $60 gift with any purchase. So go ahead and check them out. It's in the top line of the description underneath this video.
So it's like, well, maybe it's not a matter of doing more. Sometimes it's a matter of pulling back and getting more out of less. So the quality of the sets, and we spoke about this before, the quality of your sets, your reps, your sessions in the gym matters more than just the overall, oh, I did this number of sets, I did this number of reps. The quality matters. So if your training performance is improving week over week, and training performance could be in the form of, oh, I did another rep with the same amount of load, or it could be I added another 5 pounds on the bar. You can be pretty confident that you're gaining muscle tissue and that the calories that you're consuming are going to work. Which brings me to number 3, nutrition, which I feel like a lot of people overcomplicate it. And I was the exact same way when I was younger. I tried to figure out the hacks to this, and it's at the end of the day, it's jumping over dollars to grab pennies, I think, the majority of the time. If you're consistently in an energy surplus for an extended period of time and you're tracking your training performance while having that good sleep environment and getting good quality sleep, then the nutrition is just facilitating the muscle growth because the stimulus is there, the recovery is there, and then now you're just getting the food in. Now with nutrition, I think that people try to do everything at once. They try to build the muscle, lose the fat, where I think if you dedicate particular time periods to one and then the other, you're going to get to your end goal faster. And so for me, what that looked like was instead of just constantly trying to be like, well, I'm going to try to limit my fat gain, it's like, I'm going to provide the best possible nutrition to facilitate good sleep and good training performance. And then the rest kind of falls into place as it does. So anywhere from like a 200 to 400 calorie surplus for most people in their 20s who are at a decent body composition will facilitate the training performance and the recovery to allow for actual muscle growth. Now, where that comes from is minutia. If those other things are in check, just do what makes you feel good, what allows you to sleep well, what allows you to have good energy, what allows you to have good training performance. And that could be higher fats, that could be a higher carbohydrate approach. And unless you're a competitive level bodybuilder, it's not going to affect you to the degree that you think it is. And these 3 pillars really are the main things. If you have all these three things, these 3 ducks in a row, then you should be able to optimize your muscle building goals.
Yeah, man. I mean, with the nutrition piece, one of the things that I'll kind of add in there that's people get really hung up on, I need to stay very shredded while I build muscle, or I need to, okay, first of all, like you don't, but you also don't need to get sloppy, right? There is a middle ground. But secondly, like they get caught up, especially young people, in like the quintessential bulk and cut, like just the bulk, the cut. And what's really helped me over the years, and what I wish I kind of knew when I was in my 20s, was that like it doesn't need to be this long, drawn out, like 3-6 month bulk cut. Sometimes that's like a little bit of mental laziness that would happen, where you're just like, oh, it's easy to just get into bulk mode. It's easier to get into cut mode. There is like what I call routine maintenance that you can do to stay lean too. And that's where like you can be in a hypertrophy phase where you're building muscle and then allocate 1 or 2 days a week where you have a little bit more of an aggressive deficit, right? So it's like you're just doing like a mini cut in the grand macro sphere of your bulking, right? And that's sometimes a way for you to not get hung up in the day over day over day of like, am I eating a little too much? Or it allows you to relax a little bit, put the muscle on, focus on getting the nutrients in, because that's what I'm a big, there's different people in this world, and that's what's great. And that's what I wish I knew when I was 20 was that it's okay to take little bits from each camp, right?
Absolutely.
Like the calories in, calories out camp, I 100% agree, or I 90% agree with a lot of what they say, right? And then I also take pieces from the other camps too, where it's like, okay, well, yeah, like, insulin matters, these things matter. It's okay. You don't have to subscribe to one camp. Like if you're young, no, you should actually get your information from multiple sources.
And experiment.
Yeah, experiment. And so what I had learned was that, hey, I could say nutrient quality for me is most important. That actually for me typically comes above calories, but I'm also experienced to know that like I'm not going to eat a double cheeseburger, right? So it's going to be something where I want my nutrition in. Some days that means that I overeat by normal standards, right? And I think this is really important for young people to know that that's okay. Don't give yourself an ED over this. Like it's like, so then what you can do is at the end of the week or the weekend, take a day where this is going to be your cutting day. And it helps you compensate for those days where you might have just been on a roll. You don't want to break momentum with your good diet of eating a lot of food to build muscle. Then you keep it in check one day and you kind of do an aggressive, maybe it's intermittent fasting, maybe it's just one restricted day, right? Where you just like cut calories one day. people don't realize, and I never like, when you do the math and you're like, okay, if I cut calories by 500 calories or even 1,000 calories one day a week, that comes out to cutting 150 calories a day or something like that off of what might have been a surplus.
Right.
The entire point with that is you got to give yourself mental grace so that you're not like obsessing over it day over day, because it takes the fun out of it.
I would agree with that 100%. I guess that's another pillar that I can add, since you're asking for more than just 3 pillars, but stress is a major thing. I think that neuroticism, with the amount of information overload that kids are getting now, is at an all-time high. I think most people are trying to find every single hack, but maybe the hack is just limiting that stress and trying not to be overly neurotic about particular things. Like knowing that, this one day of going over or this one day of staying under isn't going to affect my overall progress so long as my other ducks are in a line, right? And so I think try to take in as much information as you can, but also take each piece of information with a grain of salt and experiment and allow it to run its course before jumping ship. So people will make an adjustment to their diet after 3 days. It's like, you're not really seeing what happened in those 3 days. You're seeing what happened in the days prior. And the same thing goes with their training plans. When you're training, you should maintain a regimented program for 3 to 4 weeks at a time minimum before switching out exercises or before adjusting any particular thing, because now it's a matter of managing these variables so that you can objectively assess what's going on and what's working and what's not working. And I think that's what bodybuilding taught me when I was really young and up until this point now, is that everything is about routine and developing a routine. And then that was where it tied into everything else. Your nutrition kind of has a routine, whether it's peri-workout or throughout your day or hitting your protein goals. Your sleep has a routine in the amount of time that you're getting and the times that you're going to bed and waking up. And then your training has a routine in the gym. You're doing similar exercises and making sure that you're actually progressing week over week. So the more you can get into a routine, limit the amount of stress that you have overall, which the routine can genuinely help with, because whatever I'm doing, I'm going to figure out the outcome, whether that's good or bad. And then I can adjust from there objectively. But if you're just running yourself in a circle 24/7, making changes all the time, you're never going to figure out objectively what is working and what isn't working. So when you read one study here and one study here, don't immediately flip the switch. Take that into account and say, next mesocycle, which is just a training block for simple terms, next training block, I'm going to give this a try. Or next nutrition block, I'm going to give this a try and see how I feel. And you take account of these things and you make the adjustments as needed. But don't just jump ship right away just because you see one study here or one study there. And I think with the science-based or optimal community, a lot of times we take these studies and we say, this is the gospel, I need to follow this to a T. And it's like, not every single person in that study likely responded as the outcome shows. Yep. It was a group of people. And I'm sure not every single person responded that same way. As individuals, we're going to respond to different amounts of training volume. We're going to respond to different amounts of stress. We're going to respond to different amounts of food or calories, however you want to put it. And how these different things affect us are going to affect the outcome of whatever our goal is.
It's I want to say 2 things with that are really important that, again, I wish I knew when I was in my 20s to kind of tack onto that. One is helping people understand like how studies work and how, because we live in like information overload era where there's study after study after study after study, and it doesn't mean that that's everything. So like first with that, a lot of times studies don't have the money to get a lot of participants. Mm-hmm. Okay. They don't have like the grants or the availability to like get the specific cohort that's needed. So studies are great. Okay. We don't always want to just park all of our cards in whatever a study says.
Right.
And that's a really important thing to note, that the best PhD in the world can talk about the best study in the world, and it's still only as good as the study itself. It's only as good as the participants that were in it. It's only as good as the adherence of the participants. Mm-hmm. One thing that I've learned throughout life is that we are all wildly, wildly different people, not just physiologically, but more so mentally and emotionally.
Right.
And people are going to have different drive, different adherence. And as much as you can control a study, there's going to be variables. So my point in saying that is to go to point number 2, which is you talked about the optimize thing. I always say maximize, don't optimize. Mm-hmm. Like we want to maximize. And when you're a kid, It's the last thing. Like optimizing is what you do in your business when you're 40 years old and you're trying to like optimize little tweaks of your business and you're trying to optimize campaigns and do things to squeak a little extra 0.5% out.
Right.
That's not where you are at. That's not where most people are at when it comes to nutrition and training, let alone someone that's younger. Like your focus needs to be on maximizing, right? How do I maximize and pull the biggest levers possible? Because you should be leveraging your time and youth to be able to pull those big levers, not little teeny switches, right? You pull those switches when those levers have already been pulled.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get that extra 1, 2, 3, 4% out. You're not there now. If you focus that energy on that 3%, you're leaving the other 97%.
Yeah, what I should say 100% is that I'm by no means perfect with I've by no means been perfect, but I think that's why I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm at is through experimentation. The majority of my career, if you can call it a career, I've learned the most just through anecdote, and people in the science-based community will discount anecdote a lot and not even look at it or not address it. But when you're young, if you're in your 20s, like anything, like business or anything like that, this is your time period where you should be trying to see what works for you. Not only from like a building muscle perspective, but from a routine and regimen perspective. Because if this isn't something that you can do for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, or if this isn't something that is going to facilitate your ability to get to the end goal, it doesn't matter if you adhere to it for 1 day or 1 week or 1 month. It's, can you do this over an extended period of time, and does this fit into the actual plan? So when you're 20 years old, figure out the things, or when you're in your age really, figure out the things that you can consistently do, and don't try to do something just for the sake of it when you know that a week down the line you're just going to fall off that wagon.
No, that's exactly the truth, man. And I feel like kind of the big piece that people need to sort of take away with all of this is that, like always going back to basics, that's going to be the number one thing, which we get confused on. Like, what are the basics, right?
Yeah.
And the other piece is that sometimes just turn off the dang phone and turn off the content, and turn off the stuff.
Touch grass.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you don't need to be woo and weird about it.
Yeah.
You need to be able to like put that stuff down, because your own intuition is going to tell you a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, we've been humans for how many years?
Exactly.
There's a lot of biological mechanisms inside of us that are going to put us intuitively into a better position than reading a study would, Yeah.
And it's don't be afraid to be your own anecdote, and don't be afraid to like see what works for you. And that's one thing that I do kind of appreciate about your generation is there is a little more emphasis on that now. It's just like, it's a little less of just black and white. What does a study say? There is more about like, no, this works for me, and that's cool. And if that works for you, that works for you. And you just got to block out the noise. And
for sure.
So, well, Tristyn, where can everyone find you, man?
Just Tristyn Lee across all socials.
Cool. Right on, my dude. Thanks, man.